I'm going to get started with a few introductions. Welcome back to the IDE seminar. We have a fantastic presentation and opportunity for discussion today. Our guests today are Praveen Tanguturi and Philippe Roussiere from Accenture, and they're here to talk about AI maturity. And this is work that they've been doing with our very own René Gosselin. They've been having lots of great conversations, and these two have really led the way in developing this model and this thought process, this framework. This thought process and this framework is very aligned with the IDE's philosophy. As many of you know, we've been doing research for years, going on decades now, about IT productivity, which has emphasized the role of complementary investments in organizational processes, in human resources development, in many other similar organizational changes that unlock the value of IT. And what these folks have been working on is a similar approach to thinking about unlocking the value of AI and thinking about the concept of AI maturity. So Praveen is a principal director and global research lead in applied intelligence at Accenture. He designs and leads research programs in data and AI-assisted software development, and vertical AI. Philippe leads innovation and AI in Accenture research. He's got 25 years serving in a variety of research leadership roles, and he focuses a lot on innovative new methods like machine learning, NLP, economic modeling, data visualization, and so on. And what they've been working on recently, and in collaboration a bit with René, is this concept of AI maturity, which is looking at how the leading organizations use AI at scale to create 360-degree value for all of the stakeholders. So specifically, they have been looking at survey data from over 1,600 executives and millions of public corporate statements to measure how organizations really harness AI-related capabilities, which is a word that you will be familiar with us having used a lot at the IDE. And they call this AI maturity. So they're going to present this framework to us. I just want to remind everyone of our ground rules here at the IDE seminar. In just a second, I'm going to turn my video off, and I request that everyone except for the two speakers also turn their video off. And I'm going to go on mute as well. I request that you go on mute. If you have questions during the presentation, type them into the chat. I'll be reading them. And if there's something immediately and directly relevant to what they're saying in the moment, I will bring that to their attention. I'll sort of break in. But we'll save all of the questions and discussion for the end. And so Praveen, Philippe, if you wouldn't mind saving a little bit of time at the end to host the conversation. And at that point, we can have all of the videos turned back on and we can have a conversation. The purpose of this is really just to reduce the amount of distraction that our videos create. So Harang, if you could turn your video off, we'd appreciate it. And everybody else do the same. Again, type your questions right into the chat. I'll be reading them and breaking in as need be. And Philippe and Praveen, I already told them that they're welcome to reach into that chat and pull out any questions that they see as burning and answer them as they please as well. And with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Philippe and Praveen. Thank you both for being here. We sincerely appreciate it. I'm personally really excited to hear this new thinking.
Thank you, Celan, and hello, everyone. I'm Philippe Roussiere, and I'm delighted to be here today with my partner in crime, Praveen Tanguturi. We're going to use the next 30 minutes to go through quite a bit of content that hopefully will be of interest. We'll definitely save time for Q&A at the end as well. So I'm delighted, super excited, even humbled, I was saying earlier, to be in this prestigious forum. Accenture is one of the partners of the IDE, and Accenture Research is the think tank of Accenture at the intersection of business, technology, and human ingenuity. The title of the talk is really The Art of AI Maturity, How Smart Machines Helped Researchers Predict the Future of Smart Machines. The reason is that we are actually going to see how we used machine learning in particular to uncover some of our findings. So as you can tell from my accent, I'm French. I'm based in Paris, so that means 6 hours ahead of you, which means it's more typically not lunch talk for me, but it's more like a evening drinks time. And for Praveen, it's in Bangalore time, it's more like supper. Which means we'll keep our energy level as high as possible to keep you engaged. So the first thing that you probably are asking yourself, so Accenture does research, but is it real research? The answer is yes. It's applying a set of research techniques, indeed, on what we call the major forces that are impacting our clients, the typically large organization, global 2000 companies. And our CEO refers to the 5 forces as being the total enterprise reinvention, the sustainability, talent, metaverse, and tech revolution as being the themes that we focus on, and we publish in SMR and HBR. We're partners for the World Economic Forum and a few NGOs globally, and of course our work gets published on our website, so you can see the research we published last June called The Art of AI Maturity on accenture.com/AI maturity for easy reading alongside the talk or after the talk. So the agenda is we're going to talk about some of the findings. I'm going to talk a bit about how we did the research and then open for questions. First, on the next slide, why we looked at this topic. It seems obvious for all of you, but it means that we had to position this with a CEO in the C-suite agenda, because our clients' CEOs are asking, what is AI? Why should I care? How are my competitors using AI? If I hear a lot about their CEOs talking about AI, so setting the tone from the top. What is the investment I need to make, and what is the ROI? Why has AI called that attention from the C-suite is super important, and it's a confluence of 3 things basically. It's the fact that it's moved from being a lab experiment to a general purpose technology, basically, which means that machine learning, and whether you call it machine learning, neural nets, computer vision, and NLP and speech processing, these are all things, even the foundation. The large language models, GPT-3, they've made this much more affordable recently. It's become quite a thing with the cloud, the availability of data as a second factor, making this very cost efficient, very easy for training models quickly, and so it has made it something real in the enterprise. And from a productivity perspective, you were talking about this earlier, the economics of productivity are a little bit complex, but it's fair to say that the AI is now augmenting work abilities at an increasingly better economics to make 3 adoption possible at scale. The ones that you see on the screen here, which is basically number 1, better decision making for everyone in the organization, if they're in the managerial position, typically. The automation and the augmentation of all activities within the enterprise. And third, the creation of new products and services, the ability to be generative in terms of products and services, and create new revenues and new business models. If we move to the next slide, yeah, thank you. The question then is, if all organizations are racing to embrace AI, why are some seeing more value than others? So 3 years ago, 2019, we did this research called Build to Scale, which highlighted 2 important factors. One, yes, C-suite wanted to achieve greater growth thanks to AI. They needed AI to achieve it. 75% of the executives that we had interviewed were, in fact, believing that their business would go down, that they would go out of business if they did not deploy AI, which was a staggering number back then. They were forecasting that to be the case by 2024. And the fact that they struggled to put that AI at scale from pilots and proofs of concepts, which they had already tried 3 years ago, they were stuck and clearly struggling to put that AI at scale. So 18 months ago, forward to today, we asked ourselves this question. We embarked on this adventure to seek out the true levers of what makes AI generate value for large organizations, among them many clients of Accenture, of course. We wanted to find out what are the important capabilities that these clients need to achieve to reach the outcomes in terms of growth and profitability, but also with a broader lens in terms of value for all stakeholders that are meeting their respective strategies. So last June we published this report, The Art of AI Maturity, and I want to go through a selection of the research methods that we used back then. So it's a lot on this slide. I won't drain the slide, but this is starting obviously, as Sinan was saying, with a large survey, the largest survey of that kind to look at a granular level at 80 variables in terms of maturity, from the strategy at the top to the organization model, to the technology, to the processes and talent, but also responsibility angles or governance angles of deploying AI across 16 industries and 15 countries. So it was meant to be also covering the entire, not only the C-suite, but also the chief data and analytics officers, chief data scientists, and having specific questions for them in different parts of the questionnaire. That was back in a year ago, roughly speaking, that we ended the field work. That was based obviously on top of experts interviews with 25 CEOs and CDOs that helped us shape not just the questionnaire, but also the level of maturity, which was current, and the expectations in the future. We worked with organizations like the Alan Turing Institute, and the fun fact, as Sinan said, was that we also worked with René. Back then, René Gosselin, Dr. Gosselin, was very interested in this ability that we had to inject the notion of responsible AI as one of the key pillars, and Praveen will talk more about that. We developed case studies of large organizations from across industries on how their own journey from analytics to advanced analytics to AI was panning out, and the difficulties that they had faced, etc. We use design thinking with a particular tool called Mural to gather all our subject matter experts inside Accenture in our ecosystem to tell us what are the sort of gradients of maturity from adopting to leading and orchestrating sometimes the various capabilities in each of the respective domains. We used machine learning models as a key differentiator in this research, in particular when we were looking at the survey generating about 500,000 data points. We wanted to, in particular, understand the true levers of performance when we were looking at the outcome. Could be cost savings, could be revenue, could be some benefits that are associated with productivity. We will talk more about which ones we use, but at the end of the day, what we found useful was to use lasso regression models to be able to distinguish between meaningful explanatory variables, discontinuous variables, and avoid the bias in the data. That was a choice we came to after some trial and error, let's say. The financial premium was calculated using S&P publicly available data, which we were able to tag through our research vendors' capability to the individual company which we had clustered. You will look at the clustering a few minutes later. The ability for us to also not just look at financial performance, but the perception of value from customers, from the dimension of the externalities, the environment. We hear often AI is optimizing at the cost of all other variables. In this case, we wanted to understand these effects, the positive outcome on employees and on the environment, but also on the supply chain, for instance. The scores that we built were based on the number of sources. I won't drain it, but we can talk more about that. And natural language processing, last but not least, was used when we were looking at the statements, the millions of sentences. In fact, I was looking at the number earlier. The 2,000 companies that we looked at generated about 260 million sentences, paragraph, I should say, of the statements that were relevant across the adoption of AI. We had to use topic modeling to detect not just the keywords, but the meaning of adopting AI at scale versus other forms of digital transformation across the earnings calls, transcripts, typically on the other investor conference transcripts. I hope I'm going through at the right pace. Looking at the time, I want to cover a few of the first next three slides. The first findings. So the first, the AI promise is definitely putting it at the C-suite on the C-suite agenda. The one thing that we found striking is that the top executives at the global 2,000 companies who discussed AI on their earnings calls were 40% more likely to see the stock price of their company increase. That was using Finbert library. Many of you are familiar, I guess. It's a very intriguing finding that generates typically a lot of interest from CEOs. Second, 42% of those who had deployed AI, but not just piloted it, but deployed it, had seen the results exceed their expectation, and the financial results in particular. And only 1% were saying the objectives were not met. And because, as I said, the pandemic and the ability to use cloud at larger scale was happening in the last 2 years, we definitely saw that more openly sharing the data to enable services with suppliers to customers, an ecosystem that generated a very good, timely creation of data, cloud, and AI strategies being in sync in the last 2 years. For the first time, there was really a kind of a tipping point for AI at that stage. 75% of companies we interviewed were deploying their AI and cloud strategies to be in sync. So the next finding the two findings that really struck me, I will cover real quick, are one, AI transformation is compressed. It's happening at a pace which is faster than the overall, say, digital transformation. So AI transformation is defined by deploying AI and seeing the business benefits and the enterprise wide impact is faster. Is actually we calculated 16 months faster for the last decade, or projected according to our prediction. We used a S-curve analysis based on these earnings calls transcripts compared to digital transformation related terms used by executives. The second and quite pivotal moment in the research finding that I want to talk about now is how AI has moved from being a tactical tool for automation and cost savings to being more than that. Yes, it's still meant to be used for cost savings, but generating significant revenue is now the goalpost for deploying AI, and that's what we are seeing in this chart. The share of companies that had AI influenced revenue in 3 years ago of 10% or below was the majority. Now the majority, and in fact over 40% of companies now are looking at between 10 to 30% of their revenue being influenced by AI. And looking into the future, the trajectory is quite clear. The majority in 3 years' time, by 2024, will be companies that are even above and beyond 30% of revenue influenced by AI. That's if you compound those different brackets, today 22% of revenues is influenced by AI. What does that mean? Influenced by AI means everything from having customer recommendations powered by AI, customer experience powered by AI, having pricing strategies influenced by AI, having new products and services which at the core are powered by AI. So that was really a key finding that we used to set the goal for what we call the AI achievers and all the other clusters that now Praveen will talk about in a minute. Thank you.
Thanks, Philippe. So that brings to a question. So what is AI maturity, right? So the way we define is that it measures the degree to which organizations have really mastered the capabilities across 4 categories, to say so. One is AI strategy and sponsorship. Second is data and AI core. Third is talent and culture. And fourth is responsible AI. And then how are they faring across all of this? And 4 of these groups are further broken down into multiple subcategories that we will see in a moment. So that's how we sort of define AI maturity. And each of these levels of maturity we have defined from lowest level to highest level in terms of what would that mean in terms of capabilities, in terms of ability to do things seamlessly, adoption of technology, adoptions of platform, so on and so forth. So in order to understand, which capabilities are contributing to their maturity and their business performance. And as Philippe said earlier, right, we developed 2 machine learning models. The first one was to identify the entry-level capabilities, or what we call them as AI foundation capabilities, which are required at a minimum to sustain 10% of AI influence revenue. So that allows you to sort of compete in the market. But that's just the first set of it. But then we also said, how can then differentiate? So the interaction between the foundational capabilities with the having that right strategy, which is at the core of organization strategy, and the sponsorship from the top differentiates, allows some of the companies to differentiate themselves compared to the others in the market, and they are able to earn or see AI influence revenues of at least 30% or more. So when we look at that, when we look at these two lasso models, right, and then when we cut that, what we really see today is that there are only 12% of the companies in our sample, or at least a point before I really go into this is that the organizations who participated in this survey are the ones who have, at a minimum, a basic AI strategy in place. So the others who did not have were not allowed to go through the survey, or sort of, they had to be sort of screened out. So it's only the organizations that have, at a minimum, basic strategy, and they are thinking about it, and they are trying to scale it across the organization. So we see that there are only 12% of the organizations are really matured. And when I say matured, they have a balanced capabilities across the foundation as well as with the differentiation. So they have balanced capabilities across, data and AI core, which is basically the engine that is powering their organization. They have a right strategy, which is at the core of their organization's overall strategy, and it is driven from the top. And since it is driven from the top, the employees within the organizations are also are interacting with data and AI, and interacting with data and AI tools for business decision making. And most importantly, they are also responsible by design. I'll come to that, what we really mean by that in a moment. And what we really see is at 12%. And then we have innovators and builders who are on the opposite side of the spectrum. And as we say, innovators and builders, right? The naming itself conveys innovators are really good in experimenting. They love to come up with use cases, but they're really low on their mature capabilities, like the core AI capabilities that require. They're really focused on the use cases that will create the aha moments for them and their clients, right, or their stakeholders. And builders are quite opposite of them in that sense, that they have the strongest of the engine, right? They really have a strong engine powering it. They have teams who are able to leverage that, but it's just that their AI strategy is not in sync with their capabilities. So that's something that really need to work on. But not surprisingly, what we really see is that in the last 3 years, since 2019, there is still a large group of organizations. And in our case, we see that 63% of the organizations are still struggling to figure out their data and AI strategy, right? They're really struggling to figure out what kind of capabilities do they need to have. Who can they partner with? Do they have the necessary talent and resources to really accelerate their AI journey, and so on and so forth? So that's a huge, so there is still a lot of them who are at the very early stages of it, and they're struggling to it. So that's what sort of the market sort of looks like. That's sort of one of it. The second and the most striking insight for us was that AI maturity, or AI, is no more associated with tech companies or software and platform, which we always have. Like, we always tend to give examples of Amazons, Alibabas, or Apples, or the Googles of the world, that these are the ones that are really at the forefront of it. Yes, they are, and they continue to be. But what we really saw in our survey is that in the last 3 years, the level of AI adoption and maturity by industry has really accelerated. Tech continues to lead it. They are ahead of it. They are forefront of it, because they are really developing applied products and services. But we also see that automotive, aerospace and defense, life sciences. We saw how companies like Moderna, Pfizer, they leveraged AI in their COVID-19 journey, right, and so on and so forth, right? So if there are companies who are ahead, but there are other companies who are still struggling. And surprisingly, what we see is that banking and capital markets, healthcare, consumer goods and services, they are behind, and then for various reasons, starting from legal and regulatory challenges, not having the right AI strategy in place, or which is not sort of not having the talent and culture within the organization. So, but clearly AI is across. We see it pervasive across each and every industry, and I think in the next 3 years we really see each and every industry leapfrogging and improving their maturity levels over the period of next 3 years. Again, that would require relentless and ruthless investments in data and AI. So what sets these AI achievers apart, right? 3 things. First, what we really see is that, as I was saying, the achievers have the most balance and striking capabilities across across all the capabilities. And what we really see on this slide is basically a subset of the capabilities that our models identified as the strongest indicator of their maturity. There are others who are highly correlated. It's just that we're not showing, but this is a subset of it. And again, starting from the top, right? You need to have a right sponsorship that is driven by AI. And this, we heard it not in our interviews with the CEOs who were saying it. And then when we tested that in the survey, it sort of, it was sort of proven that, it has to be driven from the top, and they have to be proactive rather than reactive. When we say proactive and reactive, in the sense that they need to have right tools, resources, talent in place, rather than waiting for things to happen in the market and then be a fast follower, right? And they should be leveraging the AI and ML tools that are available with their ecosystem partners. Either they can develop them in-house, or they can collaborate with the partners in the ecosystem to sort of develop new products and services. That's one. Second, core data and AI core, which is basically the AI engine, the AI core of the organization, and it begins with the basic. Like, as we said, 75% of organizations are closely tied their cloud and AI strategy, and it clearly seen in this case as well that platform and technology is key. While that is the infrastructure is key, what we also see is that having the right trustworthy data is also important for innovation, development of new products and services, and for decision making. And around all of that is you need to have the right governance model to make sure that all the rules and regulations are followed across the region. You are in compliant with your own standards as well as with the industry standards. Third, talent and culture, right? You have all of the pieces that strategy and data and AI core. But if the workforce and the employees are not adopting it, then it really doesn't work. That you're not really maturing and scaling across the organization. And that starts from what we've noticed is mandatory training. And surprisingly, what we also saw is that the C-suite across the global 2000 companies, when we interviewed, they are upskilling themselves by joining training programs delivered by premier universities across the world. That's one way of doing it. Second, they have their CDOs who are running gamification workshops to run their imagination wild and come up with new ideas and challenge them. Third, there are other ways that we've seen is that the CDOs are really doing a virtual tours of some cool startups, universities, to really influence what AI can do and the value that AI can deliver. And most importantly, training. They are upskilling themselves. So and because it's driven from the top, the employees are also sort of upskilling themselves. Second, what we really see within the talent and culture, especially in the culture, is that we always talk about innovation, and here what we really did is that we unpacked innovation in 2 levels. One, is it embedded within your organization? That's good. And is it encouraged? And how are you encouraging that within the organization? What kinds of tools, platforms, incentives are you offering them? And that also plays a meaningful role in achieving the AI maturity as well as in adoption. And most importantly, the striking factor that we saw, thanks to sort of pandemic and the importance of data being responsible behavior, is that there is a very small fraction of the sample, right? According to our survey, only 6% of the organizations are really have understood the principles of responsible AI. They have understood and they are implementing them in the practice. What we're really saying is that they are designing in the sense that it's across the development of AI models within the organization. It's pervasive, so it's part of the DNA of the organization. It's just not like a compliance and then, okay, we have a one-pager which talks about responsible AI and we believe by it. No, they've gone beyond it. And there is a lot more to be done. And why we say what lot more to be done, we did an NLP analysis of investor calls of the global 2000 companies. And what we saw is that only 6%, sorry, not 6%, only 0.6% of the organization, and especially 0.6% of the executives actually speak about responsible AI in their investor call. So either is there a lack of awareness, or is there a lack of, or they don't really know how they are implementing responsible AI strategies within the organization, or they're not yet figured out completely, right? Or one can say that there are no incentives for the C-suite to really be measured on responsible AI strategies, right? So there's a lot needs to be done. It's one of the hottest topics that we see, and is really a differentiating factor between AI achievers and rest of the organizations in our sample. And third, and AI achievers are also sort of turning pilots into a production. Basically, they are scaling these pilots across the organization. And again, you can clearly see the difference between the two. AI achievers are just not focused on one business area or function. They are doing it across the function area. So compared to the rest of the sample within our study. And third, right, as Philippe was saying, right, and the fear of that, AI is, it's all about financial premium. No, so we tested. We said ourselves, like, let's test: are the achievers sacrificing everything else at the cost of, achieving that financial premium, sort of really pleasing the analyst communities and their stakeholders? In our case, what we really see is that two things. One, yes, there is a financial premium. We see that AI achievers are getting 1.5x greater revenue growth, which is fantastic. Second, they are also sort of, they're also are leading when it comes to customer experience, sustainability metrics, especially on the environmental side of it. So they're really being very careful. So they are thinking in a 360-degree value meter perspective, rather than just focused on the communicating to the analyst community or your shareholders that this is the revenues, these are the growths, but they are thinking about the greater good of the society as well, and how it impacts the environment, how it impacts the customer experience at the end of the day. So that's a difference. That's a change. That's a major difference that we see in AI achievers versus the others in our group. So that brings to a natural question at the end of the day, right? How to be an AI achiever, right? What are the 5 things that you should do to be to be an AI achiever? And every organization will take a different path. So it's not like it's going to be a linear approach to it. But what we really are studying, the study over the last 18 months has really taught us and revealed is that there are 5 things that every organization have to really think about it and really invest. One, champion AI as a strategic priority, right? Not as a sort of a side thing, right? It has to be core to your organization's engine, and everything has to be driven by it. So basically, AI has to become the process within the organization. It has to be the utility within the organization, if I can say that, right? Second, invest heavily in talent. To get more out of your AI investment. That means that upskilling, training, giving them the right incentives, hiring, retention, so on and so forth. Third, build that AI core, the engine, right? That's where your sort of all the innovation takes place. If you do not have that right AI core capabilities and the people to manage it, everything else fails. Fourth, most important, design AI responsibly. Just don't talk about it, but implement. Encourage failure, right? We are noticing, for example, Monetary Authority of Singapore. It's at the forefront of really putting responsible AI to practice. There is an European bank and an Irish bank which is really taken, which is embedding AI, responsible AI practice within their development process. Then you see Novartis talking about it, and the common thing on all of this is that it's driven from the CEO. Right, and it's not just being championed at the business function level, but it's been driven and championed at the top. So these are the organizations that are making the difference and seeing the value because of that. And 5, the journey doesn't end here. The journey actually starts now. And when I say start, it's basically now you've reached a potential point. It's important that organization relentlessly invest into it because there are others who are catching up. And in order to keep that gap between themselves, widen the gap, they have to relentlessly invest into their capability. So these are the 5 things that really our study has really shown. So what, right? So we sort of what we have developed is we've developed an assessment tool that sort of we're rolling out to our clients, Accenture clients, that will really help them in assessing their AI maturity today and to achieve a target state. And we ask all of these executives, CEOs, CSOs, CDOs, and so on and so forth, is that ask fundamental questions about, right? And it's not a question that only the C-suite should. Everyone within organization should ask that. And we've sort of developed an assessment model around it, which allows them to really see themselves, right, where they are, where they can be, and compare themselves against their peers set within the group as well as within the region that they are operating. So that brings to sort of the end of our sort of, this. Before we go into the what next, maybe it's the right point to take a pause to see if there are any questions, reactions. We'll be happy to sort of answer, and then I can close this out with a couple of other slides that which sort of highlights what we are doing now and what to expect in the next 12 months.
Thank you both. That was really helpful. So I think there's one big question that's sort of brewing in the chat, which I think is worth talking explicitly about, which is how do you define AI? And Philippe jumped in and sort of defined it, but I think it's worth also having just a conversation. So you can imagine that there's a very broad range that you could think about as being quote unquote AI. And especially when you think about it in the context of answering a survey as an executive. Mm-hmm. And it ranges from a very inclusive view, which Irving was advocating as being anything that is about analysis of data to achieve business value, all the way through to artificial general intelligence, which many would debate whether we have or don't have, is AI sentient? We could get into that debate. But anything in between is also fair game. And so if you wouldn't mind, Philippe, or both of you just discussing how you defined it, and then maybe we could have a little bit of a discussion about what is an appropriate definition. I'll say for myself that I was advocating that it's worth distinguishing sort of large-scale data analysis techniques like neural networks, NLP, and other large-scale language models or other large-scale machine learning models, and other sort of like anything close to AGI from, for example, survey data analyzed with crosstabs and or say small n regression. But then there's a pretty hard question to answer that follows right up to that, which I believe that Nina posed, which is, well, okay, well, where do you draw the line, between small n regression and these larger scale data analysis techniques and call one AI, but not the other? And then how do executives interpret that when they're answering a survey? I think these are all very legit questions. So maybe you could just speak to that broad question area. Tell us how you did it, how executives expect to be talking about it, and why you think the way that you're thinking about it is the right way.
Philippe,
go ahead, Praveen. You want to?
All right. Yeah. So let me start this, right? And again, thanks a lot. This is a very fundamental question, and we've spent most of our time on this at the early part of our research, and I'll start with where Philippe sort of started off, right? So yes, I mean the way we defined it broadly is exactly as how Philippe says it, right? From in our survey, that's how we defined it, that it's at a very high level, it's all about sense, comprehend, and act. And then we sort of double click into it. It includes everything, machine learning, neural nets, computer vision, the intelligence, so on and so forth, right? And that's what sort of we, as a definition, we offered in our survey. But that's one part of it. Second, as we said, right, we also sort of, when we were interviewing the CEOs and the CDOs, right, what we really understood that CEOs really did not understand even the basic definition of AI, right? For them, it was just merely a black box. And CDOs are across these global organizations are spending quite a lot of amount of time in explaining, coaching the CEOs what exactly AI is. So they're really starting at the fundamental level of what AI is, what it can do, what are the boundaries of it, where you should start thinking about AI, what it can do to your organization. So I think the CEOs and the decision makers are not yet there in terms of, right, AI, are thinking about the general AI, right, which is still really into the future of it. So we wanted to keep it simple so that they understand from where they begin their journey, where they by application of AI, and then the value that they can earn extra, and all the points around it, right? And we should have it much more broader, absolutely. And in the future research streams that we have for this year, we are actually widening that more beyond that what we sort of went into the in our FY21 sort of research program. And the last thing that I would really want to say is that when I say that CEOs are struggling, and the comment that I made earlier, right, the CDOs are also, if CDOs and chief analytics officers are designing the AI strategy of the organization, the first thing that they told us that we spend time, either it could be few hours in a month or a weekly call with the C-suite and the CEO in coaching them about AI. That's one. Second, they're also running workshops. So we learned this from one of the CDOs of a top media company in India that she ran this gamification workshop, and at the end of it, entire C-suite decided to enroll themselves into top tier universities to really understand the fundamentals of AI, what it can do. And it also created a challenge for us that everyone in the organization thought any problem that you have that can be solved through AI. Right, so so that's where the industry is at the currently when it comes to understanding AI, what it can do. Philippe.
No, I think you summarized it all, giving a lot of examples. The one thing that I would add is that CEOs represented only 10% or even less of the total respondents, so that blurring line on how we define AI versus advanced analytics is not having such an impact. I think most of the respondents, the large majority of respondents in their roles in data science and data analytics were quite clear on the definition from the onset. Number one. Number two, I think it matters a lot for CEOs to become more familiar because of the responsibility associated with AI, the responsibility in terms of the transparency we see in Europe and California and some parts of Singapore, UK, etc. There are lots of pending regulations that are going to put the company at risk and the CEO himself at risk if they don't understand the difference between an explainable AI and a non-explainable AI. So that's something that they care about a lot.
Thanks for that. I mean, I think that that's a reasonable, set of definitions and opinions. Raul has posted a helpful link to responsible AI design for folks. From the Accenture point of view. So I think we've got about, if I'm not mistaken, just a few more minutes. So if you've got some what's next to present, Praveen, please go ahead and do that. Just to let folks know, I just wanted to thank you both for being here. It's been great. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to have to jump off right at 1 o'clock. So please excuse me if I'm not here for the very close. But with that, thank you all very much for coming. Thank you both for coming to present these ideas. And Praveen and Philippe, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you very much, Thanks for having us. Philippe, do you want to talk about the?
I'll talk briefly about this European lens that we put on the research, just looking at this topic of productivity, which is super important, especially in the time when crisis is sort of knocking on the doors in Europe. I won't need to explain why. So we did some calculation for the average company that is sort of maximizing. By average, I mean $5 billion company that has the sort of industry average for investment in IT, and a portion of that, devoted to AI per our survey findings, which give us a lot of input. Obviously, we find profitability gain per year that is pretty staggering, like 2 to 3%, which you calculate as EBIT points. That means that's twice as fast as the annual rate of productivity, and I mean labor productivity now in the EU. If you look at the last 10 years, just even less than 1%. And that's 3 times the average contribution that you can allocate to or devote attribute to general IT in terms of productivity. So the AI lever is a much more powerful productivity growth engine, given the economics of AI. Building on the AI core, you get exponential profit potentially compared to your competition. So that's something we just published on the European Business Review. There's a link in the publication. Maybe we can post it. But I want to hand over to Praveen, because that's important. Beyond the geographic lens, we look at all sorts of new topics and potential collaboration with MIT.
Right. Thanks, Philippe. So 4 topics that really we are exploring as in continuation to our AI maturity work that we did over the last 18 months is, and we are widening our lens and taking a deeper dive into the topics that we really learned in this exercise. First and foremost, responsible AI, right? And especially this is a work that we look to collaborate with Professor René Gosselin, and more so at looking at responsible AI by design. So designing both taking help of behavioral science and machine learning models to really come up with what is the right approach of embedding responsible AI and practices within the organization and infusing their in end-to-end development of AI models. Again, it's at very early stages of it, but that's one of the priority topics that we're looking at in this fiscal. Second, verticalization of AI. It's a topic which is brewing very silently within the community, which is that no one size fits all, right? We can't take a model that worked in one industry and one use case and lift it and shift it into another one, and it should work wonders. But what we're really seeing is that the moment the real world data comes into the picture, the models start failing. The components within the model start failing, so moving from that horizontal to more verticalization of it. And if you could draw an analogy of it, how vertical industries came up in 70s and the 80s, right? Think about it in that sense. That's one. Second, we're now taking a much more holistic lens in terms of how data and AI would drive the total enterprise reinvention. And again, this is with cloud, data, AI, security, and platforms, all of them coming together to really drive the enterprise reinvention, the transformation. And then what would that sort of look like? In terms of capabilities, both into so at one hand you will be looking at AI driving the industries and AI for itself, right? And AI for developing new models out there. So 2 ways of it. And the other thing is, and the last but not the least, is the topic that we're really exploring and spending time is AI-assisted software development. We know this whole, the open AI, the Cortex, all of the new transformer models which are out there is really starting the conversation of how AI can augment humans, right? And what would it really take to achieve that state? So, and again, it's juries out there to how fast that can really happen. So we're starting our preliminary investigation in this area to really see what is that North Star, what would it take, and if we break it down into like the next 3 years and 3 years beyond and 5+ years, what are the capabilities that we need to really build, and what kind of use cases are right for AI-assisted software development. So these are the 4 topics that really really digging deeper in this in the next 12 months, and hopefully we will come back to this audience with our initial insights as to what we really learned from our research and industry. So
we started with the MIT 5 rule, and we're ending on time.
yeah,
Praveen and Karen.
Thank you both so much. I appreciate you. And everyone will see you next week for October 4th for Manish from MIT Sloan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank
Karen.
you, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Be here. Bye.